Hello, everyone. We are going to be talking about the nervous system now. So, the nervous system is the master controlling and communicating system of your body. It works alongside the endocrine system, which is going to regulate the hormones in your body, in order to make sure that all of the different parts of your body are working together in order to keep you alive. The nervous system is going to be much, much faster and more specific than the endocrine system, though. The endocrine system is going to release hormones into your bloodstream, and they take a while to spread around, and they take a while to have effects. Um, Endocrine system tends to work on the order of minutes, hours, days, years, even in the case of very long-term processes like going through puberty, whereas the nervous system works more on the order of fractions of seconds. So our nervous system is going to be much better at responding to things very, very quickly. They do this because instead of just releasing hormones into the bloodstream, we have these specialized cells called neurons that are able to communicate through electrical and chemical signals. These are very rapid and specific because a specific neuron can innervate specific target cells. So we saw this when we looked at the motor neurons innervating the muscle cells. Our motor neurons can innervate not just a specific muscle, but specific motor units within that muscle to produce very specific responses. So our nervous system has three overlapping functions: sensory input, integration, and motor output. Input, output. So sensory input is us using our nervous system to gather information about the world around us, what we call stimuli. And then integration is going to be processing and interpreting that sensory input. So an interesting thing about how we exist in the world, even though we have our senses, like our vision and our touch and all of that, we don't actually directly perceive that. Instead, we have our perception of the world. And our perception of the world is going to be based off of our brain integrating and interpreting our sensory input. Because really, when you see something, all that is a pattern of cells in your retina firing off electrical signals. It's up to your brain to figure out what those electrical signals actually mean and what it should do about it. Once it's figured that out, it's going to figure out what the appropriate output is. So this is going to be activating effector organs, so these could be muscles, these can be glands, in order to produce a response. So here we have someone seeing a glass of water, and then it's going to go into your brain, where not only are you going to interpret that as a glass of water, but you're going to think about, well, when was the last time I had a drink? Am I thirsty? Should I be following that 8 glasses of water a day thing? If so, when was the last time I actually had a full glass of water? Yeah, I should drink some water, and then producing the appropriate motor output to actually make you grab that glass, lift it up to your lips, and take a drink. Our nervous system is split up into different what we call divisions. So we divide it first into two main parts, what we call the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. Our central nervous system is brain and spinal cord. So remember that your spinal cord is part of the central nervous system. So our CNS is our brain plus our spinal cord, and this is going to be enclosed in bony coverings. So in the case of our brain, it's encased within the cranium of the skull, and within the case of our spinal cord, it's going to be enclosed within the vertebrae. This is going to be our integration and control center. It's going to be where sensory input goes up to, and it's going to determine what the appropriate motor output is. Our peripheral nervous system is all of the parts of our nervous system that are actually outside of our central nervous system. So outside of our skull or outside of our vertebrae. This is going to be mainly nerves that actually extend from the brain and spinal cord. So even in our peripheral nervous system, most of the cell bodies are still going to be within the central nervous system. Just what we call the axons or nerve fibers are going to project out into the body. And these are going to be both to receive information and also to send out information. We can furthermore divide up the peripheral nervous system. So the peripheral nervous system gets divided up into the sensory division and the motor division. We also call the sensory division the afferent and the motor division the efferent or efferent division. So the sensory division is called the afferent because information goes from the sensory division up to the central nervous system. And then the motor division is called the efferent division because it's going to go from the central nervous system out to the affecting organs. So, if you know the difference between between affect and effect, so affect with an A is actually the verb. If you want to affect something, that's affect with an A. Effect with an E is a noun. So the afferent nerves are affected by a stimulus, and the efferent nerves are going to cause an effect. And though we call them motor because it will often control our movements, note that not all of our target cells of the afferent nervous system are muscles. They can also be things like glands. We can so our sensory division, we have a somatic sensory fibers and we have visceral sensory fibers. Somatic sensory fibers, soma is going to mean body. So this is going to receive information from our skin, our skeletal muscles, and our joints. And then the visceral sensory fibers are going to receive information from our viscera, our internal organs, and send that information up to the central nervous system. Our motor division gets divided into what we call the somatic nervous system and the autonomic nervous system. Our somatic nervous system, this is our voluntary nervous system. Remember skeletal muscles, we call them voluntary muscles. So our somatic nervous system is going to control our skeletal muscles and control all of our voluntary movements. Our autonomic nervous system is going to be involuntary. It's going to mainly be responsible for controlling our viscera. So this is going to regulate things like our smooth muscles and our cardiac muscles and our glands. So things we don't have direct conscious control over. Furthermore, our autonomic nervous system is going to get divided into what we call the sympathetic and the parasympathetic division. The sympathetic division is also called the fight or flight division. So this is what produces that short-term stress response that prepares you to either fight something or run away from something. Whereas our parasympathetic is going to be our rest and digest. It's going to encourage us to conserve energy and to repair. They are going to work in opposition to each other, but maintaining the appropriate balance between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic is really important to maintaining homeostasis. So when we look at the divisions of the nervous system, we have our central nervous system, which is our brain and spinal cord, and then we have our peripheral nervous system, which is all of our nervous tissue that's outside of the brain or spinal cord. That gets divided into our sensory and our motor divisions. Then the motor division gets divided into the somatic, which is our voluntary nervous system, and our autonomic, which is our involuntary nervous system. Note that that's abbreviated ANS. And then our autonomic gets further divided into the sympathetic, our fight or flight response, and the parasympathetic, our rest and digest response.